Dave Scott Hub Media today. We're with Mike at Dover Apothecary, and this is a really important issue we're talking about today. You and I have expanded on it before, but more in the terms of preventing. But today we're going to talk about Lyme disease and what happens when that tick is engorged, and what happens to your body, and how you can help save the day sometimes, obviously, with this. One of the first things I want to bring up is Mike has these kits. We're going to explain that to you in a minute. You definitely need to be aware of these. So, Mike, I've got a tick on me, it's engorged. What's it doing?
Okay, so first of all, once the tick has embedded itself, there's the potential to cause infection. So at the moment that the tick has pried open the skin and that first dose of saliva is injected, which can be as little as 30 minutes after the tick is attached to the skin, wow. The risk begins at that point. Once the tick has fully engorged, it's gone through a process of ejecting saliva, drawing blood, regurgitating blood and saliva, and which is being cycled back and forth into the wound. So at that point, the risk of transmitting an infection is actually quite high. So a tick bite that involves a fully engorged tick, in other words, the tick has filled itself with your blood, presents the highest risk for a transmission of an infection. But the risk can actually begin at a much lower risk from the time that the mouth parts are fully embedded in the skin.
And I want to take a minute, because if you do get a tick, and the common practice has been you remove the tick, the whole tick, and then you place it in a bag and take it to the health unit. Right. And they can identify, well, actually it's shipped away. It takes a few months. And you've picked up this product, and I've used this already. It's phenomenal. So once that tick's been removed, you can place this in a cylinder, crush the tick, add a solution, shake it up, wait 5 to 10 minutes, I believe, take some droplets out and put it on a strip, and you know within 5 or 10 minutes if that tick carries the bacteria. Exactly.
And why this is really important, as Dave pointed out, is that you get an instant result. And so if you have an embedded tick and you're concerned about whether you have a risk of developing infection from it, you can assess that risk right away scientifically without having to wait for weeks or months to get a response back from the public health laboratory. And the really important thing about this is that when you know for sure that you've been bitten by an infected tick, you can then present this scientific information to your physician, who can then make a rational decision about whether to treat with antibiotics or not. One of the dilemmas that physicians are constantly faced with is when that person reports a tick bite, they have no way to assess the risk. And so they're forced into a position where they feel as though they're being asked to prescribe an antibiotic for a condition that may or may not exist. And many of them are uncomfortable with that. But if you can provide them solid evidence, and this test is a fully Health Canada certified diagnostic test. It uses an antibody immunoassay process, so it's as reliable as the tests that are done in a scientific laboratory, and it's as easy to do as a birth control or as a pregnancy test. So
and it's 95% correct. Is that
very high specificity and accuracy? And the real value, or the reason that's so, is because in the tick, the concentration of the bacteria is much, much higher than it would be in a blood sample from a human.
And plus, on top of all this, if you don't do this test, let's say, for example, and you do have the tick and you're waiting, again, the bullseye is only present in 20 to 30% of the people get the bullseye, which is a really good indicator. It's like winning the lottery, really, if you get a tick infection. So there's a lot of stuff going on locally about Lyme disease, and I thought it was really important that we sort of clear up a lot of misconceptions. So
right.
I appreciate you for doing that today, Mike.
Right.
Again, can't emphasize enough, though. Preventively, you need to be aware when you're outside.
Right. Right. Ticks are present. This area is unfortunately, is a very good environment for ticks. Anywhere where there's a lot of leaf litter and ground cover provides a wintering over environment for ticks. So if you live in a place where there are lots of opportunities to interact with those kinds of animals, then you're living in an area that is tick prone. And if you spend time outdoors and you rummage through leaves, and I was telling Dave about my experience. We were planting trees on the weekend, and over the course of the weekend, between myself, my wife, and my dogs, we extracted 12 ticks in total, 10 of which were deer ticks, and several of which were fully embedded. We used 6 of the tests and found that 2 of the 6 deer tick that we had were positive for Lyme bacteria. So I can't overemphasize how important knowing for sure, if you've got an embedded tick, being able to test it right away, capture that tick, test it, and then use that information to protect yourself against developing a serious infection.
I'm going to spend some time with Barb next, and we're going to talk a little about the immune system and how that works and sort of the therapies that can go on after that deer tick with Lyme has infected you. And again, I think can you just give us a quick insight to some of the medication the doctors would use to address Lyme disease?
Sure. So in the initial period of time after a tick bite, the mainstays of treatment are either amoxicillin, which is a type of penicillin, or doxycycline, a type of tetracycline. These are drugs that have relatively low risks for using in humans and are very effective at aborting the infection at an early stage. The real giveaway with a tick bite is inflammation. So if you have a tick that's punctured the skin, if the area becomes inflamed after you remove the tick, then there's a very high possibility that that tick has transmitted some kind of organism that your body's immune system is reacting to. And that is a good recommendation for antibiotic therapy.
Will the prescriptions, I'm just curious now, does that kill the bacteria?
Well, in the initial stages it can. Unfortunately, with advanced Lyme, when it's left untreated for months or years and people develop a chronic infection, antibiotic therapy is only part of a strategy of managing the process. Unfortunately, we still don't fully understand the complete life cycle of the infection and the changes that it makes to our body and our immune system. So right now we're still working with incomplete data, but antibiotics are definitely the mainstay of treatment once you're bitten.
And one of the last things we'll touch on, and I'll let you go, I know you're busy today, is the immune system, because I've read in some situations with Lyme, chronic Lyme especially, it hides in your body. It can hide for years. After the age of 50, your immune system starts to weaken as you get older, and then it shows more prevalency. You might see that later on in your life. Is that correct?
Well, it's correct. And one of the really confusing parts of this is that the presence of any kind of foreign object or infectious material creates an immune system reaction. And many of the symptoms that people with Lyme infections experience are actually caused by their own immune systems reacting to the presence of an organism, but that it can't completely overwhelm and remove from the body. So it's a constant irritant. It causes the immune system to become hypervigilant, and then by accident starts to attack other tissues. So in many regards, Lyme disease can mimic autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and psoriasis and things like that.
You know, there is a report out there stating these days too that things like dementia, MS, Parkinson's, there's a conception there that perhaps 5% of those could be Lyme disease.
That's right. So misdiagnosis may be a very important component in the statistical the effect statistically of Lyme disease undiagnosed in the population, for sure.
It's been a lot of information we've provided today, and I hope we didn't overwhelm people. But again, stop at Dover Apothecary, talk to Mike and Barb. If you're not sure, ask those questions about Lyme. Educate yourself on this summer. Be aware of what's going on around you with ticks, and get to know what a deer tick looks like. Prime example being what you've talked about, finding them in your place, and just be aware, eh, Mike?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Informing yourself, understanding the precautions for prevention, knowing how to protect your environment, to eliminate habitats for ticks in areas, you know, keeping your children's play areas and your pets' play areas relatively tick-free reduces the risk of exposure. So, and if you're an outdoor person like David, using things like gaiters or permethrin-based repellents on your outdoor clothing, really, those are really key areas to become better informed about.
And we don't usually promote, we're not big on promoting product, but I'm going to tell you right now that that kit is a lifesaver. You've got to get one. If you don't have one, and especially if you're going to be out in the woods, carry one, throw it in the car, you have it. It's a quick test, and it's a little case of relief when you know in the end.
Right.
You're not waiting 3 months.
And for those people who are unsure about this, if you have an embedded tick that you've removed and you're concerned about it, especially if you think that you're developing some inflammation from it, if you bring the tick to the pharmacy, we will actually conduct the test for you if you're unsure about how to do it correctly. If you bring the tick in, let us know what the circumstances are, and we would be happy to actually perform the test for you.
Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate your time today. This is a wealth of information that we've provided, and let's be safe out there this summer, eh?
Right.
Thanks.